Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Spark AI Show, where we try to do our best to keep up with what is going on with AI in the accounting industry. And also, we try to promote AI literacy and adoption within your accounting firms. And so that takes on a number of different things every week. And this week, I've got Steven Lyon from SafeSend here with me. So, hey, Steven, how you doing?
I'm doing good, TJ. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Stephen, why don't you go ahead and give us just a brief introduction of who you are and sort of how you fit into SafeSend?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as it says, my name's Steven Lyon. I am the product marketing lead at SafeSend. So, I work on our marketing team, do a lot of things for the company just in general, a lot of content creation, go to market assessments. I go to events and promote our products. And I've worked with SafeSend for about 12 years now. Started in 2013, and I was employee number 5 overall. So it's been awesome to see the company grow and kind of the industry as a whole grow from paper strategies to start introducing some digital stuff. And now we're talking about like big digital things and new things there. Paper's kind of the way of the past, and AI is kind of the future. So it's exciting to be here.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome, and cool to hear your kind of long history with SafeSend. So you'll have an interesting perspective as we go throughout this episode. So really, this episode we're going to talk about SafeSend for sure as sort of the red thread, I guess, as you want to call it, kind of weaving through. But really, we're going to focus on just the impact of AI on SafeSend, both from a product perspective and just from a company perspective. And so having that history that you have with SafeSend will be really good to provide some perspective. So Stephen, you mentioned product marketing, you mentioned content creation and stuff like that. What is sort of your day to day look like? What's the most common things you're working on day to day?
Yeah, so the most common stuff that I work on day to day is really just kind of market research and content creation. If I had to like kind of sum it up, so just seeing what everybody else is doing out there in the industry, whether it's kind of like a competitor to SafeSend or not, it's not really the bulk of what I focus on. I want to know what firms are doing, what they want to do, where they see technology going, what their staffing shortages and frustrations are, their client experience. It's really just to know them on a little bit more personal level without actually being there at the firm, and then using that information and knowledge to kind of facilitate or influence SafeSend's product roadmap and things like that. And then, of course, creating content, video content that is either educational, thought leadership, things like that. Really just want to get the information out there so that firms know what we have, what they can do, and maybe even see a better way to do things if there's something they're frustrated with.
Yeah. So you mentioned employee number 5 there at SafeSend. Give us a little bit. You kind of touched on it a little bit in your intro there, but give us a little bit of the sort of history of SafeSend and sort of how they have thought about product development over time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, back when the industry, in 2012, 2011 was kind of starting to think about digital solutions and going paperless. And the first product that we sold was Tick, Tie, and Calculate, which is a Adobe Acrobat kind of tool set that allowed accountants to mark up and run calculation tapes and things like that on work papers provided by clients. From there, we jumped into, as the industry evolved, into e-sign and secure document exchange. We saw that although people were using portals, they had some frustrations with that. Some clients would only access it once a year, and we wanted to provide a solution that didn't let them forget passwords, which they ultimately called the firm for and had them reset for them and things. And then moving into e-signing, and from there we really just kind of had this idea of, well, what if we can put all of this together, mash it all in? And that's where we came up with SafeSend Returns. And when we released that, that was kind of big for us, a way to process a return, run some automation, and get it out the door in just a few minutes.
Great. So it's really helpful sort of background, maybe for those that aren't as familiar with SafeSend, or maybe all of the products or where you guys have come from. As we sort of enter into, you know, moving from paperless to digital solutions seems, I mean, you mentioned, right, that was sort of early teens, maybe late aughts, that people were really starting to think about that. And now we're, I feel like, so far from that in terms of maturity, and we're exploring what AI looks like in that realm, right? So now we're moving from paperless to digital, digital to AI infused products and features. So love to just dive into sort of where you all are with that, and maybe just starting with your personal journey with AI. I'm curious, you know, how you've been exploring AI. You know, we're coming up on sort of the 2-year anniversary of the launch of Chat GPT, which sort of set everybody, you know, on fire there a little bit. So I'm curious just to hear a little bit about your background with AI and what you've been exploring it for.
Yeah, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on generative AI or anything like that. But my personal journey has actually been kind of a little bit delayed. Like I saw it, and you see videos online of ChatGPT and people trying to trick it and things like that, and I just kind of thought it was humorous. But I used it for very small things when it first launched. I actually used it to help write my speech for my sister's wedding, and did things like that. And I actually really didn't start using it for work tasks until pretty recently. And that was, discussing things with my team, and someone just suggested, well, throw it in Chat GPT. And I said, well, no, you can't do that. Like, I'm supposed to do this. That's what I'm here for. You're paying me to do this. That's not for Chat GPT. And everyone just kind of laughed, and they were like, no, we use it for support. Like, this is how we use it. And I have dove into using it a lot more, helping with like email schedules and follow-ups, and just kind of changing my verbiage and things. It's been very helpful on kind of like a personal basis to do some of that stuff. And then on the personal side, using it to have to plan things, and to say, yeah, hey, find me, or what do most people see when they go travel to these places, or what's the best time of the year to go and see this, or things like that.
Yeah.
So use it for those kind of mundane tasks. But on the professional side, it has helped step up email games, literacy, and things like that. And it's been hugely helpful.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. It's one I hear, not as often, but I definitely hear where people are like, I feel like if I start engaging with it, and I'm using it for this, like I feel guilty. There's a little bit of guilty, or maybe a little bit of a hit to pride, you know, where it's like, no, I can do this better than, you know, whatever. But so that is, I mean, that is a real thing that does keep people from fully embracing sort of what it's capable of. So I'm curious, you know, as you've gotten to use it, and certainly across your company, and as you have conversations with folks, how has generative AI, you know, really impacted? How has it impacted SafeSend over the last 2 years? Just, you know, in general.
Yeah. So the thing is it kind of goes back to what I was just talking about kind of like personal improvement. Um, the really two things overall. It's helped individuals kind of stand out and improve themselves. Right, writing better emails, coming up with better talk tracks, adopting different strategies. It's also kind of definitely sparked the conversation about the directions of our products and the expectations of our user base. There definitely has come into play, like, hey, where do we see this fitting in SafeSend? And do we have generative AI? Is that going to be helpful for anything versus, specific RPAs or anything like that, or AI that's doing specific tasks? And overall, and we can get into this a little bit later, is we see it in our solution as something that's used in a specific instance rather than just generative and open for all to use. In other words, having it to have AI's sake is not something that SafeSend is really focused on. But on that personal side, individual side, it's definitely been a lot helpful. And as I said, I've talked to team members, and they're using it for all sorts of tasks, and it's helping them improve without having like specific coaching, writing those emails and things like that, learning how to follow up, learning what time and day is best for certain regions and things like that.
Yeah. So on the product side, I mean, as you're, you mentioned you're having conversations with folks. Are you seeing where there are, and again, you mentioned sort of point specific, like you're not going to have AI for AI's sake. So are there capabilities that you're realizing are available to you now, that weren't available previously to be able to solve problems that have sort of been latent, maybe sitting on the sidelines, or something where you're like, yeah, these are things that we need to address at some point in the future, but there's just not a good way to solve for those. Are you starting to identify some of those kinds of things that this new capability allows you to solve for in a new way or in a different way than you have before?
Yeah, absolutely. So in SafeSend, we call it Gather with AI, and we're not saying it's an AI based Gather solution. We're saying it is a Gather solution with AI. AI is integrated in things, and there's two things that it really does today, and that is number one is if someone decides that they want to send an organizer or a document request list during the tax Gather process. Uh, our AI will read that previous year organizer that they upload, and then we will generate a document request list of items that the client needs to provide that firm right then and there. And the AI is very quick at it and reads and puts that together. The other side to it is on that client side, as they upload those things, the same AI will read those items and then automatically map it and check off those items. So they'll see a percentage calculator go up and things like that. As they upload those requested items, and it just makes it a lot easier and a lot less manual for both the firm to create a document request list and for the client to have to manually mark which things they've uploaded or upload one thing at a time to each requested line item, right? That you see in a lot of things there. Now, again, this is very pointed AI and it solves a headache that we specifically set out to solve rather than putting it in for just communication, messaging, or generative purposes. And that's where we've seen is going to be kind of the biggest success is kind of eliminating those manual tasks with AI's help.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm curious, as you're having those conversations, do you feel like people are you kind of getting asked frequently, like what is, um, maybe uh, beyond Gather, or anything like that? Are people asking like, what is SafeSend's stance on AI? What are you doing with AI? And is Gather sort of the answer now, or is there more that you're looking to do going forward?
So I think the big thing with SafeSend and AI is that we're not really getting asked like, okay, is AI really changing the game? And what Gather is really solving a much bigger problem that firms have with that process of getting documents and an organizer filled out and things like that. So a traditional organizer is really focused on an individual versus like an entity or a trust or anything like that. And what Gather is going to allow us to do is send items or requests to anybody and not require an organizer. We can send an organizer that's converted if we want to, but it allows us to send specific questions, an engagement letter, and use that AI to recognize those requested items as the client uploads them and things. And we can do it for anybody. It's not tied to just an individual. So again, it's not really a AI specific product. It is a product that kind of solves that niche of we are having this gathering problem with AI backed features. And really, that's the kind of thing that people are looking for us to solve, not necessarily coming up with an AI solution that's going to be kind of the end all be all. Now, we hopefully can introduce more features that are AI backed that solve some of these manual processes, but this is a relatively new thing, and we think that we are on the right track to start implementing these processes and these AIs to really solve a lot of manual problems. It's just going to be on the roadmap here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an important distinction to make, because I think therefore, I think it was maybe even a year ago, 6 months, a year ago or so, there were some studies coming out where people were sort of saying, we're starting to move into the direction of actually solving real problems instead of just exploring what can this thing do, right? Kind of take it back to mobile, the sort of mobile movement was everybody, you started with, oh, we can create apps, and there was all these apps that were created that were just exploring what can we do, and then people started actually solving real problems with mobile apps and other things like that. So I think we're starting to move into this, as you've kind of described there with Gather. We're taking it from, okay, there's all this stuff you can do, but now we can actually apply it to some of the real problems that we have, and it allows us to save time, and to reduce some of the manual nature of what you have going on. So I'm curious, how, we've talked a little bit about the product, and you mentioned some of the operational things. What are some of the challenges that you see? Maybe just kind of relating to our firms. Our firms are having challenges as well implementing AI. Now, you've kind of described that there's sort of a difference. I like to draw this sort of continuum, right, where you've got the Chat GPTs and Claudes and Geminis, et cetera, of the world that create these sort of general AI tools where AI is made available, and that's kind of the app store. You can create whatever you need, but there's a lot of self exploration. Where we sit with Spark is sort of a step down from that, in terms of it's still broad based, but we're trying to create something more accounting specific. And then you've got things like Gather and other tools like that are being created within our products. Um, that are more feature specific, or they're solving specific problems. And I think there's absolutely reason for all tiers of those. But I do think that there is, I continue to have conversations with folks, and there is still hesitancy and anxieties around AI within our firms. And so I'm curious, what are you seeing as some of the challenges? And maybe in this case, it's not specific to any one thing, but within SafeSend, the organization, you mentioned you're more recent to it, but what are some of the additional challenges that you all are seeing to implementing AI in a broad way across the company?
Yeah, I mean, the challenges that we are having is not really trying to implement it. We use it for specific things. We are putting it in the system. I think the biggest challenge that we see is with the industry out there is kind of sifting through all the white noise that comes with we have AI, right? Okay, a simple integration with the Gen AI is kind of a great tagline. Like, you can use it for communications, you can use it for emails and things like that. But as we kind of talked about, it's starting to really become about how can we specifically solve those problems, rather than simply support. Now, and I don't mean to like knock generative AI or anything, because I think it's an absolutely great tool. And from what I've used and what I've done, and I find that firms use it well, like when they try to solve some staffing issues with it. We all know that staffing is kind of a big issue in our industry and always has been. And there's really two ways to solve it, and that is get more staff, which everyone kind of struggles with, or make the most out of the staff you have. And I think that generative AI can definitely help with that. If you just want to throw in a task, ask for tax research and clarification, return prep support. What's the best way to report cryptocurrencies on a tax return? These can help staff really become a little bit more of a force to be reckoned with, and kind of free up time for value added services. So when we look at it and we want to introduce it into the system, what we're looking at is what tasks are easily eliminated with the use of AI that don't need any help. So our challenge is finding the right fit for the AI, but it's definitely something that we're committed to.
Absolutely. So as you look into the future a little bit, maybe we'll look nearer term first here. What are some of the things that are on your horizon that you're looking at sort of tackling next? So you mentioned Gather and some of the benefits to using it in that way. What are some of the other things that you're paying attention to in that process? Like you said, they're each kind of very manual steps, and they're very dependent. Like each user has their own set of circumstances, and has a unique situation. So as you look at those out in front of us, what's sort of the next 6 to 12 months look like for SafeSend in terms of how you're thinking about implementing, I guess, as it relates to the product in general, but
Yeah.
given this is AI, I am more thinking AI focused kind of things.
Yeah. So basically, the main focus for the next 6 months is going to be on the gathering side. We want to expand the AI document recognition and the generations. And kind of serve as a greater function for your entity engagements or for the firm's entity engagements, not just the 1040. So we're going to be doing a lot of things with engagement letter creation that has AI backed features to it, faster engagement letter automation and delivery. We can expect kind of a new client experience called One Hub is what we're referring to it as. It's not a product or anything, but it is kind of like a one stop portal, if you will, for the client experience. It's going to use AI to pull everything from the different features of our systems into one spot. So right now, what I mean is when we send a return or we send a gather, or we send an engagement letter, it's all kind of separate. We're going to be using this one hub and AI to pull everything together and kind of put everything in one spot for the client, as not only for just getting copies and things, but they're going to be able to complete tasks, and it will recognize that they have open tasks and promote them. They can send documents there back and forth. So that's kind of really where we're gonna be focusing on. But some other things that are on the side that may not be specific to AI, we're going to be supporting more return types overall. We're going to be adding draft returns so firms can send drafts instead of the final return. We want to leverage some capabilities of AI to help with collecting payments on invoices for firms and things like that. So in the near future, really good features coming that'll help everyone kind of adopt a little bit more, and then give some really cool enhancements to firms and the clients, make their lives a little bit easier.
Yeah. Awesome. That sounds good. So, and then, let's put on our sort of, get out our magic wands, if you will, or something like that, and kind of predict the future a little bit. If we could sort of solve anything, or maybe let's talk more about the potential impact that we see AI having within the accounting space over the next 18 to 36 months. What are you all feeling, for the longer term, like transformative um, capabilities here that you think is going to be really, really interesting to your clients?
When I think when I think about the future of it, a term comes to mind that we've heard 1,000 times, and that's digital transformation, right? And I feel like this term is actually more applicable now in regards to AI than it ever has been before. As we talk about digital transformation, we typically referred to it as we're going from a paper manual based process to a digital process, and that's our digital transformation. Well, now we're talking about digital transformation of the technology evolving, right? And I feel like in the way of AI, you're just going to see companies, firms, everybody start using more pointed ways uh, for AI, creating new workflows, standards, just improving productivity. One of the things that I think about in this industry of tax and accounting and financial is, people using AI to come up with strategies or advice for their customers or clients, kind of based on their specific circumstances. Come up with a financial plan based on what they already have, what they don't have, what we're trying to accomplish. And usually you are just relying on that person in front of you and they don't have all the facts. And now you have a tool at your disposal, potentially, that has all the historical information and can run with that in a few seconds versus that time. It just seems like it's going to be a huge value add to kind of that financial area. And I'm saying financial area specific to our conversation, but it could be in anything, right?
Yeah.
And then the automation of manual tasks. I see kind of data entry going away, email follow-ups and generations and things going away. I think a big value we will see is the traditional like admin roles being able to step up and help in more important and strategic ways. I mean, one of the biggest things for AI that I have really come to notice is the ability to go through and kind of analyze data. I sent out a survey to a bunch of firms, got hundreds of responses back, just kind of asking them about their day to day, and put all of those responses and their firm kind of data in or for metrics kind of in the AI, and it spit out, hey, this is what they're thinking, this is what their motivations are, this is how you can help. And to have that information and to have it very quickly, I think that it's going to take the industry and AI itself in just a really exciting direction.
Yeah, I think you highlighted a couple of interesting use cases there, and I think that's one of the things, you mentioned before, writing emails and tax questions for sure. Like those are, as we sort of see what folks are using Spark for, that's a lot of what we see. I would say 80-90% of the prompts that come in are around those things. But where you start to see some of those uh, bigger gains, if we think sort of academically more the 201, 301 level, use cases there. It is in some of the analyzing data and some of the things that have just taken a long time to do in the past just don't take as much time anymore. I mean, when you're analyzing, especially survey data and stuff like that, that is very time consuming and requires a lot of thought and opinion, and it's different. Like if you were to split that up between you and somebody else, you're going to have a different sort of bias than your other person. And you can process those a lot faster. We've definitely seen that with some of the research that we're doing. And so, yeah, I think those cases, those use cases are going to continue to evolve. And I think, I kind of want to go back to one of the points you made as well, which is you're trying to identify sort of how you can apply this to each of the manual steps. And I think over time, as the models continue to get better and faster and cheaper, you're going to be able to apply that to each of the manual steps where it's going to be able to interpret the information that came before it and be able to craft a new process or workflow or whatever to adapt to the information that it has and the information that it needs. And like you mentioned, being able to go through that, it's a pretty standard workflow, but all the pieces and parts that happen are different at every step along the way. And so being able to interpret and change at each step and sort of work with the client in that way, I do think that there's a chance that that becomes a trigger it, let it go, let it do the work, and then you come back with a return, right? And I mean, wouldn't that be great? So
Yeah, but I mean,
yeah,
and when you have something as predictable as tax return delivery, assembly, and things like that, for the most part, we know what tasks we want to accomplish. So I feel
mhm,
like getting that part automated using AI to accomplish some of those things for us is just going to help everybody move to bigger things.
yep.
So I do definitely see it as a positive, and SafeSend is working very hard to put it in the right spots, not just AI for AI's sake, AI with a purpose.
Absolutely. I think that's a great thing to end on. Before we come to a close, anything that we missed that you want to make sure that you communicate today?
No, just for anybody that doesn't know exactly what SafeSend is, we didn't touch on a lot of it, but again, we provide automated tools for tax and accounting industry. Visit our website. We have some videos. Visit us on YouTube, safesend.com, SafeSend on YouTube, and things, and see what we have. And if you have any questions, just let us know. We're here to answer, and we just want to help out. And if it looks good, we're happy to show it to you.
Awesome. So, Stephen, how can people connect with you specifically if they want to find out more, or just keep in touch with you via LinkedIn or however you communicate with your folks?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn is totally fine. And I'm happy to share my work email with anybody. It's Steven.Lyon, Lyon at safesend.com. I have any questions about what's coming or what we do, I'm happy to answer or get you to the right person. But yeah, again, visit us at safesend.com. Anybody will answer any questions that you have.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Stephen. I really appreciate you taking time today to chat with us about sort of what SafeSend has going on and what AI is bringing to the table. And for listeners out there, always happy if you rate the podcast. Feel free to leave comments. We definitely like feedback on our episodes, and if there's anything specific that we can bring to the table. So until next time, thanks so much for being with us.